I am a gender and at the AfCFTA Secretariat. It is truly a pleasure to be here to make a presentation on the protocol on women and youth in trade. It's a shame we were not able to attend in person, but at least we still have the opportunity to be part of the conversation. The very exciting conversation we are having. And for that, we are grateful for the organizers. So the object of my presentation today is to discuss the Protocol on Women and Youth in Trade, which has now been adopted by the 37th Ordinary Session of the Assembly of Heads of State and Government of the African Union. And I thought that as a starting point, it would be important for the audience to understand the journey that we undertook as we were negotiating the protocol and what the point where we at and where we intend to go in the coming years in terms of implementation. So in terms of the legal basis of the protocol, the protocol obviously is founded on the Mother Agreement, the agreement establishing the African Continental Free Trade Area, commonly referred to as the AfCFTA. And one of the key objectives of the AfCFTA is to promote and attain sustainable and inclusive socioeconomic development, gender equality, and the structural transformation of state parties. That basically is the legal foundation that you find in the Mother Agreement when it comes to issues related to inclusiveness. Following this, the 13th Extraordinary Session of the AU Assembly made a very important commitment, and that was the commitment to broaden inclusiveness in the operation of the AfCFTA through specific interventions that would support women, young people, and small and medium-sized enterprises, as well as informal cross-border traders. Because the understanding was that if these particular groups of people are left out of the agreement, then the agreement will not have fulfilled its purpose. The AfCFTA is meant for everyone, and including women and young people. And subsequently, then the Assembly decided that this commitment needed to be consolidated into a very specific agreement protocol, a specific legal text that would then regulate how AfCFTA state parties are to achieve this inclusiveness, and therefore decided at that 35th Ordinary Session to include the Protocol on Women and Youth in Trade within the scope of the agreement. And that is where the exciting journey started of trying to understand what inclusiveness actually means, what the protocol should be, what the protocol should contain, what are some of the areas the protocol should be covering. And our understanding is that inclusiveness is not just about, ensuring that women and youth issues are captured in AfCFTA legal instruments, but it is also about making sure that women and youth are included in the process of developing the protocol. Therefore, the AfCFTA Secretariat embarked on extensive consultations of various stakeholders, women and young people, entrepreneurs, women and youth associations, academia, AfCFTA state parties, stakeholders as well, of course, it's government officials, regional economic communities, to try to, first of all, discuss development partners as well, to try to discuss the challenges women and youth are facing when trading across borders on the one hand, but also then get from the stakeholders what are some of the key elements that should be included in the legal document. I have tried to highlight some of the consultations that we held since 2020, between 2021 and 2023. We held national consultations of women in trade in 26 AU member states. We held regional stakeholders consultations, brainstorming sessions. Of course, we also had the inaugural AfCFTA Conference on Women and Youth in Trade in Dar es Salaam in 2022. The Youth Symposium happened in Lusaka in August 2023. And we also had an AfCFTA, dedicated AfCFTA conference on women in trade from in December last year in Dar es Salaam still. under the championship, under the patronage of the president of Tanzania, who also happens to be the champion on women and youth in trade under the AfCFTA. Now, what are some of the key areas, let's say the objectives, like I said, of the consultations were first to engage women and youth in trade on the challenges that they are facing, and to reflect on effective or efficient solutions that need to be that need to be taken into account. Then we also needed to discuss the elements, to discuss the approaches and the scope of the agreement, and then begin preliminary discussions on the issues to be considered in the implementation of the protocol. One thing that we need to understand is that the Protocol on Women and Youth in Trade is a legal instrument that is one of a kind. There exists no specific let's say, trade agreement that covers specifically issues of women and youth in trade. So you can imagine that we had very little precedent to work with. Of course, regional economic communities had attempted to do something along those lines, but the work that we had was really, how do I even put it? We didn't have something to start with, unlike some of the areas that are covered under the agreement, which I guess made it more exciting. Can you still hear me? Oh, dear. Hello, you can still hear me in the room?
Yes, can you hear us?
Okay, great. Yes, I can still hear you. Sorry, it's just that the screen froze for some reason. I don't know why. It is not. I'm unable to proceed. But anyways, it's okay. I think we will continue anyways. So what we did try to do is to make sure that the process of consultation, was inclusive, and we tried to engage as many stakeholders as we could within the deadline that was set by the AU Assembly. Now, what are some of the areas, that came out, or some of the main factors, main elements that resonated during the consultations? Just to cite a few, issues related to access to finance were raised, issues related to access to information, the limited capacity of women and youth to comply with, complex standards, to comply with trade regulation, trade processes and rules were also highlighted. A lot of excuse me, a lot of women and young people also highlighted the fact that they are not at the table. Their issues are spoken about, but they are not really involved from the point of developing policies all the way to implementation. They also highlighted the need to, build the capacity of young people to leverage technology and use it, as to leapfrog into the AfCFTA market. They highlighted, the need to, how do I, hello?
We can start the review for one.
Tell her again.
Maddie, are you audible on your side?
I'm not quite sure if it is my internet that is acting up. I'm trying to resolve the issue. I apologize.
No problem.
Just give me a moment. All right, thank you. I hope you can hear me now. Apologies for technical issue. Yeah, so I was highlight some of the key elements that were highlighted during those consultations. A lot of issues also were raised around intellectual property rights. First of all, about the fact that knowledge around intellectual property rights is not readily available, it is not easily understood, and also women and youth do not have support to be able to, protect their innovations, and they get taken advantage of. They talked about the need to create digital tools for women and youth to be able to trade more efficiently on the AfCFTA market, to create synergies and linkages for women, for the benefit of women and young people, to also put in place trade facilitation measures and infrastructure at borders that favor women and youth in trade, or at least facilitate their movement as they trade across borders. Promote the formalization of trade activities by women and young people, and also address issues that was mainly specifically highlighted for women, highlight or address issues related to harassment and other practices like that. Now, what the Protocol on Women and Youth in Trade therefore presented a unique opportunity, not only for AfCFTA state parties, to first of all, through binding commitments, put in place concrete and targeted interventions that would seek, on the one hand, to address the challenges that were highlighted during the consultations, and on the other hand, to also think further through other ways that they can improve the competitiveness and women and youth in trade, not only by improving their capacity, but also by improving the policy environment. And what is understood is that, of course, the protocol will still operate within the framework of the AfCFTA. It's therefore not only and overall the framework of the African Union. What this means is that it seeks to complement, let's say, existing protocols within the framework of the AfCFTA, and also existing agreement at the level of the African Union, and even at the global level on issues related to women and youth in trade. You know certainly that, for instance, at the level of the African Union, you have a number of instruments that deal with youth issues, with women issues specifically, but take a different approach, an approach that look at women from a human right perspective, that look at young people from actually quite a number of areas. You have the African Youth Charter, the Maputo Protocol, and at the international level, you have the Convention Against the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women. And so the journey of the negotiation started shortly after the consultations, and the technical committee, which was formerly called the Committee on Women and Youth in Trade, concluded the negotiations in July 2023. So as far as the process is concerned, one important thing to understand is that negotiations under the AfCFTA were member states driven. So what the Council of Ministers, the AfCFTA Council of Ministers responsible for trade, did at their 5th meeting in May 2021 was to establish the Committee on Women and Youth in Trade to facilitate the negotiations of the protocol. The committee, of course, was composed of duly nominated representatives of AfCFTA state parties and non-state parties. And what we encouraged AfCFTA state parties and non-state parties to do was to make sure that, in addition to the Ministry of Trade, representatives from the ministries responsible for gender and youth issues are also included in the negotiating delegation. And I'd like to also highlight and maybe applaud some AfCFTA state parties who went ahead and even include representatives of women associations in the Committee on Women and Youth in Trade. So the committee held 6 extensive meetings and, of course, concluded the negotiations in June 2023. After that, then the other layer of, negotiations had to happen at the level of what we call the Committee of Senior Trade Officials, that then considered the protocol and recommended it for approval by the Council of Ministers. Then the Council of Ministers in December 2023 approved the protocol for adoption by the AU Assembly. And after all that process, then the 37th ordinary session of the AU Assembly adopted the protocol. I believe this, deserves a round of applause because it has not been an easy process, but we got there eventually. At least the first part of the journey has been completed. We now have a solid and robust legal instrument that will guide the interventions towards ensuring that women and young people are at the table and are key actors in the trade sector on the continent. Now, in terms of what the AfCFTA protocol covers, it has 5 parts. I apologize. First of all, maybe I should provide a disclaimer. As the negotiations of the protocol were ongoing, the protocol itself was not publicly available because it was still a confidential document that was still under negotiation. But now that it has been adopted, it will be available to the public. We are just waiting for the colleagues at the Office of the Legal Counsel to share the final version that has been approved by the Assembly. But I would like to take you through very briefly. I'll take you through what the protocol entails and what are some of the areas that it actually covers. And I mean, I don't have a lot of, I don't know how much time I have, Madam Moderator. You will guide so that I know how to proceed. All right, so the protocol itself broadly, like I said, has 5 parts and has a total of 31 articles. And the first part of the protocol deals with, we have the preamble, that sort of lays down the rationale and the commitments that AfCFTA state parties are making in the legal provision. Then part 1 deals with general provisions, and it runs from Article 1 to Article 3 of the protocol. Article 1 being handling definitions, covering definitions. Article 2 covers the objectives that the protocol seeks to achieve, and Article 3 deals with the scope. Basically, the first part, let's say part 1 of the agreement, just lays down the ground rules so that it is understood what the protocol is about, or seeks to achieve, what the terms that are being used in the protocol mean, and how much, what would be, let's say, the coverage that the protocol, the scope of the protocol itself. Then part 2 delve into the principles and general obligations. And here, I think I will try to be a little bit, I'll expand a little bit. And the key principles, in addition to the AfCFTA agreement principles, that the Protocol on Women and Youth in Trade depends on an affirmative action, the elimination of discrimination against women and youth in intra-African trade activities, the promotion and attainment of equality for women and youth in trade, and inclusiveness. And what we also did in this particular provision is to make sure that a special treatment is catered, is provided for women and young people, and special measures are put in place. And a ministerial regulation on preferential market access for women and youth in trade will be developed in the coming months based on that particular article. Then you have, of course, standards articles such as the right to regulate. We also, the protocol provides for the elimination of non-tariff barriers, as that is the end of part 2. And then part 3 is literally the meat of the protocol itself, runs from Article 7 all the way to Article 18. And under this particular part, we the protocol delves into issues related to inclusive socioeconomic development, and what are some of the obligations there under the participation of women and youth in policy formulation and national AfCFTA implementation, the harmonization of programs to support women and youth in trade, access to finance, development of productive and export capacity, access to information, intellectual property rights, competition policy, participation in formal trade activities, protection against harassment and related practices, digital trade, and women and youth owned or led micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises. And thereunder, the legal provisions that are included in the protocol seek to, not really guide AfCFTA state parties, but through it, AfCFTA state parties have actually committed to very specific interventions to make sure that in all those areas that are covered under the articles that I've just cited, women and youth are really taken into account and their problems are addressed with women and young people. And then we go into institutional arrangements as the fourth part of the protocol that then speaks to the establishment of a committee on women and youth in trade that will assist in the monitoring and evaluation of the implementation of the protocol. One key element that needs to be understood from the start is that the implementation of the AfCFTA agreement and its various protocols lie with the responsibility of implementing them lies with AfCFTA state parties. And the Committee on Women and Youth in Trade is there to support the process by, ensuring the monitoring and evaluation of this protocol to ensure that at every point, the protocol is efficient, the protocol actually delivers on its objective. And if there's room and if there's need for any amendment, then the agreement allows for that. Part 4 also covers issues related to transparency and notification when it comes to anything related to regulations, laws, and measures that are taken that may have an impact on women and young people. There's then an issue, an article that covers, Article 22, that covers issues related to technical assistance and capacity building. The protocol tries to promote cooperation among AfCFTA state parties, between AfCFTA state parties and technical experts, but also between AfCFTA state parties and various stakeholders, the private sector mainly, women and youth in this particular case, to make sure that the protocol truly delivers on its objectives. Then the part 5 is about final provisions. These are final provisions that deals with the entry into force, the application of the protocol, conflict and inconsistencies with other agreements, dispute settlement, the review process, the amendment, and of course, the negotiations of annexes and the authentic text. So I'm sorry, I'm not able to, share the protocol with you as of yet, but we are hoping that in the coming weeks, it will be publicly available and we can have an opportunity to discuss it in more details. One other thing perhaps that I would like to mention is that the consultation process did not stop when the negotiations of the protocol started. On the contrary, the Secretariat continued to engage with key stakeholders to make sure that throughout, as we go through the process, we still check to make sure that we've covered everybody and that all the issues have been highlighted. And the last engagement that we had was a consultation, meeting that was held in Durban, where we now opened up the protocol to specific private sector women stakeholders, women and youth stakeholders, so that they can look at the different provisions and then tell us what is missing. Then this was compiled into a report that was then considered by AfCFTA, institutions, and this is the product. The Protocol on Women and Youth in Trade, therefore, the adopted one, is the product of all these consultations, the culmination of it, and we are excited about, about the implementation process of it. Now, as a way forward, what are we looking at? What we're looking at as a way forward is that now the AfCFTA Secretariat will now work on the implementation of the protocol and will work towards developing an implementation plan. Through this particular process, the Secretariat still intends to continue the consultative process that it has since the beginning of the process, and therefore we will continue to consult women and youth stakeholders and any other key and important stakeholder that will support the implementation of the protocol. What we also seek to do is to build on existing initiatives and programs that are already designed, that are already being implemented on the ground to support the participation of women and youth in intra-African trade. So we will benchmark best practices, we will replicate models that work while adapting it to national and regional contexts, and we will regularly take stock of progress and challenges. I come to the end of my presentation. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Marlene. Sorry, I was muted. We're just going to have a round of questions from the floor. Are you available for those 2 more minutes? I know you said you needed to attend. Mary?
Yes, I'm here. Sorry, I did not hear you.
Yes, we're wondering if we can do Q&A, just 4 questions for you, Kiki.
Come again?
Can you do a Q&A 4 questions only?
Yes, I can. We can go through a Q&A. I'm happy to do it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Can I have hands for questions? Thank you, noted at the back. Thank you, noted. Can I have the mic? Please introduce yourself and ask.
Good morning. I'm Dr. from the media. I want the questions but more of the comment.
Just 1 second. Just 1 second. Mommy, can we hear her?
I must say that I have a little bit of difficulty hearing clearly.
I'm actually from the media. I wanted the question but more of the comment that says, since we started this journey on the 21st of April, we were told it's a lot of it's a lot of talking about. It's actually that the last and certainly out for any other country to go to a so-called and see where we can start implementing. Because it's all about implementing, so to take on the university and implement it, make sure all African countries take and do the document and implement. Thank you.
Thank you. Should I repeat the question to Mami or leave it to the down? Or the comment, rather? Mami?
Yes, I'm here. I must say I did not hear anything. So you might have to either put it on the chat so that I can read the question or try to repeat it again. My internet is terrible.
Lots of questions down for you on the chat box. We can maybe just to repeat what he said, he was just saying it was rather a comment, not a question, that it is time for implementation, as you also did say on the last slide network.
I'm sorry, there's a bit of interference.
We lost power, Marie Providence. Load shedding in South Africa. So, Marie, can you hear me?
Yes,
yeah,
I can, but sorry, there seems to be there's a bit of noise in the background.
Okay, sorry guys, but can you settle down a little bit? Marie, we just lost power for a second.
Okay. Yeah, because I'm hearing a lot of voices at the same time.
Coming back up now. So just to repeat what the gentleman said, go ahead to the while the power is coming back.
Just like on your last slide, you said we should work on the proposal. So the gentleman was saying that since you don't have the right document, the physical document, you can start implementation of the thing that you say, and actually have an action plan and starting to be implemented.
Did you hear us?
Well, I can hear you now,
So
but as you were
when
speaking,
can this protocol be available? Can you hear us?
Yes, yes, the protocol will be available in
think
the
you should
coming
unmute,
with.
Mary. I think you're on mute.
I have unmuted. Can you hear me?
Mary?
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Okay, Mary, I think, can you speak again, Mary?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yeah, no, we're not hearing you now, Mary. Maybe, let me just call you. Hi, Marie. Sorry.